Okay, we are on page 154 in the Mesilat Yesharim, but in the Art Scroll edition, if you want to follow along. And we're in the middle of the concept of anava, and we're specifically in the third man. If you're not familiar with what the three men are, Rav Noach, Weinberg, and so explained it out as a holding. Oh, Billy's here, and we lost Moshe. Oh, no, we didn't lose Moshe. Okay. It's in this book. Feel free, check it out. It's on Amazon. We're selling it at the lowest price you can sell a book on Amazon. I put it on. I get no profit out of it. I don't know if that'll change, but at the moment it's like the cheapest price I can sell it at. So that's why it's got an unusual number to it. Kama gedolim nemuchi haruach. So we're in the middle of the third man that the third man could be identified as you have a job to do. Very, very key, very interesting. So the first man, remember we said, for the Gentiles, they think of humility as self-deprecation. And that is antithetical. Just a quick review. That's antithetical to any Jewish concept of humility. We're not bad. We're not negative. The first man is there's nothing for which to ascribe to us any praise. We don't have anything which to any credit. The second man is if you have whatever you have, right? Thank God you have it. Right? It's a merit. It's a tremendous merit, and you should help people with it. Whatever advantages you have in life is only here because you're supposed to help someone. And the third man is you have a job to do. If you're clear on what your job is in life, there's no place for which to, it's sort of like, using the parable a lot, but you're on one of the landing craft hitting Normandy Beach, that scene in Saving Private Ryan. You're on the landing craft hitting Normandy Beach on D-Day, right? You have a job to do. It's not like you're a better person because you're driving the boat, or you're the guy who's holding the medical equipment, or you're the whole guy holding the bazooka, whatever it happens to be. So now he's going to say, so continuing on this theme, on page 154, Kama gedolim nemuchi ruach. How great is the ones who have a lowly spirit. We're going to talk about what this exactly means. I think that people misunderstand it. Because when the temple was in extant, Adam makriv ola, if a person brought an ola as a korban, then his reward would be an ola. Mincha, a mincha. About me, shadato shefala, alav ma'alav kasuv ki ilo kriv kol kamal. Somebody whose spirit, his das is shafela, his mind is low, right? It's as though he brought all the korbanos, sifchei alakim, roch nishbara, because the sacrifices of God are a broken spirit, This is the praise of the nemuchi ruach, of the lowly of spirit. Shehem anavim, because they are anavim, belibam, in their heart, and in their thinking. And that's what we said right at the very beginning, that you have to have, before you can have humility in action, you have to have it in your thinking, in your heart. So now, what does this broken spirit mean? It doesn't mean that you are depressed. Far from it. That's not what it's about. I've unfortunately witnessed this a number of times of people who are who have their children are very sick, like seriously ill, and they are able to do amazing things and work together, amazing things. But when it's an issue between the two of them, they can't come to any agreement. You see that what's going on in Israel at the moment, right? Whichever side you hold on in this judicial reform, right? The one thing that's clear is no one can talk to anybody, right? The same thing's going on in America, by the way, but it's far worse in America than it is in Israel. But nevertheless, all these issues, no one could talk to anybody. In 1948, you didn't have such issues. I'm only going to hold a gun if we have judicial reform. I'll go to the Golan if my judges are elected or anything like that. You didn't have such issues because when the bullets are flying, we lose any sense of who we are. And that's the concept we're talking about here. When you realize the importance of what is in front of us and what is upon us, the responsibilities we have, and how dire the world is, and how close to destruction we are really at, you lose all sense of like who you are. That's the broken spirit. You don't have any airs about you. So that is what's broken. And you see this, who has this kind of attitude? Little kids have this attitude. They don't have any sense of who they are. You tell them to do something, they do it. It doesn't last very long. It stops at a certain age. But there's an age where they're like, the first day of school, they show up. They're like, wherever the teacher says, they're very keen and very open to whatever has to be done. So that's like the first day of school. That's the broken spirit. I keep using this example, but Jeff Bezos says that's the secret to Amazon. It's they looked at it like it was always day one. Right? If you're opening a business, day one, you don't think about, it's my job, I'm the cook, or my job, I do the accounting, or it's my job. But I've always used to give the example. You go see a top executive in a Fortune 100 company, right? And it's got a big building in downtown Manhattan, and he's got the penthouse suite, and you get to the top floor, and it's all mahogany walls, and there's secretaries and accountants and lawyers and all kinds of different people, right? And you finally get to the big man's office, and there's a big mahogany door, and you're about to enter, and just in front of the door is a crumpled piece of paper on the floor. The secretaries don't pick it up, the lawyers don't pick it up, the accountants don't pick it up. Who picks it up?
The CEO.
The CEO, right? Peter Drucker, he said that Alfred Sloan is very interesting. Him and Alfred Sloan had a bit of a to-do with each other. There was a very famous argument they had because Drucker was at the early, he was like a pioneer in this concept of time management. So Sloan asked him to come into GM. I don't know what year that was. It must have been in the 60s, I guess. And evaluate GM, right? And this was when GM was king. They used to have a saying in GM, what's good for GM is good for America. Right?
Talk about no humility.
Look at no humility, right?
Yeah, no, I remember that.
Right, you remember those days, right? GM? Right, GM was king. So they asked him to come in, and he wrote this scathing report of all the problems in GM. right? Which turned out to be 150,000% true, right? But at the time, it was like ridiculous. And Sloan had the book banned. But nevertheless, they seem to have maintained a very dear relationship with each other, respect for each other. And there's different times, people intellectuals. So, and Drucker said about Sloan that 1 week a year, he would go to one of the service stations around America and work in the service station, changing the oil, whatever it happened to be. Right? Drucker said, CEOs today don't do that. Right? That's Nemuchi Ruch. That's how did Sloan make GM? Because he didn't hold heirs to himself. I've seen CEOs who do that, right? They're the big shots. Right? I'm sure I told you the story. I was speaking at one of these Fortune magazine summits. I was not the headliner, which I've never been the headliner, but I was speaking one. But one of the advantages of speaking at these things is you get to sit in all the speakers, right? So the headliner was a guy named Jim Collins. And Jim, if you know Jim Collins, amazing books, phenomenal books. Everyone should read these books. He's got 2 great books. One is called, his famous book that made him famous was called Built to Last. And what he did was, he's a Stanford professor. So as opposed to most business writers, where they're business people and they're just writing their theory, he used scientific methodology to understand what really works in business. So they examined it. He had his students and they called it a lab, and they went through all the documents to try and figure out. So they took the, I think the top, I don't remember the number, top 20 or top 10, I don't remember the number, companies who have been around for over 100 years, like DuPont, 3M, different companies, and asked how are they structured in such a way they're built to last, right? What do they do that despite multiple product designs, different industries, depressions, all kinds of things, what did they do that made them last so long? It's fascinating, the ideas he comes up with, that they discover. But anyway, I digressed a lot. So that wasn't what he was talking about in this conference. He was talking about what makes a great CEO. And he wrote this book, What Makes a Great CEO? And he examined all these CEOs and had a criteria about what made them great. And he said the findings shocked him. This is what he said. They shocked him. He said, because of all the qualities that make a great CEO, the most important was humility. That was it. And he said, as an anecdote, the most common line, it wasn't every time, but the most common line that a new CEO said when the board of directors asked him to run the company, the most common line was, "You got the wrong guy." So in the break, I went up to him and said, "I just want you to know that of all the qualities that it tells us about Moses that we know about, the only one it says is that he was humble." So this guy, Jim Collins, apparently knew his Bible. He's not Jewish. At least I don't think so. And he was viscerally moved. Because here he is, he's wrote this whole long book, lots of, study, everything. And he thinks he's come up with this incredible Kiddush, this incredible unique idea, right? Only to find the Bible beat you by 3,500 years. And he was viscerally moved. And then he said to me, he said, "You're right. That's what Moses said to God when he offered him the job. You got the wrong guy." I don't know whether he used that line in any of his other speeches. I don't know if that was But anyway, the point is like, is the humility is like it's not about me, it's the job that needs to be done. We get out of the way. That's what the Mishnah says. If you make God's will like your will, then God will make his will like your will. Which means like don't focus on yourself. This is a fascinating thing, because the great mistake of humanity started with Chava, with Adam and Chava, right at the very beginning. I've got it. Let me just call it up. I want to. Here you go. Chapter 3, verse 5 in Bereshis. So what does the snake say to Chava? Why does God not want you to eat from the Eitz Hadas? Because God knows. In the day you eat from it, your eyes will be open. And you'll be like God, Yodea Tov v'Ra, knowing good and evil. Right? What is the snake telling Chava? Everything in life knows what it is. Right? Squirrels don't wake up in the morning and go, I think I'm really a frog. I don't know. Maybe I am. Everything knows that. Frogs don't go, maybe I'm a giraffe. Lions don't go, maybe I'm a kangaroo. Everything on this planet knows what it is and lives what it is. It is intuitive. It's like built into the fabric of who it is. Human beings are the only things that don't know what they are. We have no idea what we are, and we don't realize how threatening, debilitating that is. But you see it very, very early in children. Children dress up. And this should be a warning sign to parents that your kids want to know who they are. Why do they dress up? Because they think if you dress up like a fireman, you'll be a fireman. Right? If you dress up like a mummy, you'll be a mummy. If you dress up like a doctor, you'll be a doctor. They understand that the doctor knows who he is. Now, you can't know who you are until you've become a doctor. In other words, the doctor doesn't wake up in the morning and think, I'm a doctor. It's not thinking. He becomes a doctor because he was up till 4 o'clock in the morning, right? And he's got to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and he's got patients out the kazoo, and he's got this emergency and that emergency. He's got phone calls and messages he's got to reply to, and he's behind on the report and everything. You follow? Then he's a doctor. Right, and that goes for the fireman, and that goes for everybody. He doesn't think he's a doctor. He is a doctor. He becomes a doctor by doing doctor. The same way a mother becomes a mother, and a father becomes a father, a lawyer becomes a lawyer, and everybody else becomes, right? And the garbage man becomes a garbage man.
What about the coffee drinker?
Sorry?
The coffee drinker.
Yes, that's Rav Noach, right? I'm a coffee drinker. right? As Rav Noach, so who are you? But the truth of the matter is, right, it's a fascinating thing. But Yechiel brings up a great point. I just sent out a video. If you're not familiar with it, you look it up on YouTube, the 48 Ways. I created a YouTube channel using Rav Noach's 48 Ways I created an AI character, because they only had the audio. We didn't have Rav Noach teaching them live video, right? We only had the audio, and it wasn't going anywhere. So I want to bring it back to life, because they're like mind-boggling concepts that he would give in these classes. And one of them is, you ask somebody, who are you, right? And he'll say, I'm an economist. He says, you're an economist, right? How do you become an economist? Right? That's like saying to a guy, he's drinking coffee. Well, what are you? I'm a coffee drinker. You're a coffee drinker? How do you make a living drinking coffee? Right? Just because you do it for a certain amount of time during the day doesn't make you that thing. Right? So, but we're all trying to be something. What should we be? We should be a seeker. That's what he says. That's what the Talmud says. The human beings are seekers. We never sit still. You go into a zoo. You go into a zoo. Everyone should go to the zoo, right? And what are the animals doing? This is not Disneyland, right? It's the most boring place under the sun. The lions are sitting around. They're perfectly fine. They're not trying to get out. Only in Disney are they trying to get to Madagascar. Nobody wants to go to Madagascar. Okay? They're perfectly happy staying in the zoo, getting 3 meals a day. They don't have to worry about anything. Right? The bananas are fed to them. Right? They'll peel the bananas off the skins. Right? They're perfectly happy with everything. Right? Because animals are not seeking anything. They're perfectly fine being what they are. But they know who they are. In a knowledge that is beyond thinking. And human beings come into this world and we don't know who we are. And we're in a world where everything knows what it is. And it's very disconcerting. By the time you reach our stage in the game, you've forgotten what it was like. But when you're that age, 10, I don't know when it starts, maybe even younger, it's very disconcerting. I don't know who I am. So the problem is thinking you are. That's the whole problem with that. That's the whole transgender thing at the moment. It's a result of a world that doesn't have any emergency to it. Whereas the fireman doesn't think he's a fireman. The fireman started out, he saw fires breaking out. He wanted to do something to help. I met firemen. Right? They feel like they should do something to help people. I remember one time I had a student who was a fireman, and I wanted to try and connect with him. So I volunteered one evening to go spend the night. They do the whole, you got to be there all night, right? Because the fires don't keep to a schedule. So I get there, right? And it's a room filled with about big place, right? And everyone's drinking coffee and soda and trying to stay awake and all kinds of stuff. And I started talking, right? Who's there? Doctors, lawyers, not so many doctors actually. Maybe there were, I don't know. But because doctors are doing that kind of work, helping people. There's lawyers, accountants. It's all these professional kind of people who want to do something meaningful with their life. Right? They want to rescue a cat from a burning building. It's like when the fire alarm goes, right? They fight with each other. Oh, let me go. Right? Especially if it's like a really bad fire. They love it. Like, oh, I went into a burning building and brought out a pet guy's pair of shoes. It was a favorite pair of shoes, Oh, dear. But anyway, so you're not thinking I'm a fireman and therefore I'm going to go save the cat, right? What they're thinking is I've got to save the cat. By saving the cat, you become the fireman. So that's the process by which we should be thinking. By having the emergency on our hands, by having the pressure on our hands and forgetting the muchi ruach, forgetting who we are, that's how we become. We live in a world today that there's no emergencies anymore. The Cold War's over. And we're now faced with an incredibly challenging existence, which is people are starting to ask, who am I when I don't have to worry about being bombed to smithereens? Right? And that's the most dangerous question you can ask. Who am I? Because you can't answer that question. And he's gonna say that very thing, right? It's not because you were so many, so numerous that God desired you. Bani, my children, Ani choshet bechem, I desire you. She'vilu k'sha'ani mashpia lahem gedula. Even when I showered upon you greatness. Excuse me. Atem v'matim etzmem lefanai. You made yourselves small. How does he translate that? You diminish yourselves before me. And that's the key word. It's not diminishing yourself. Is it? But when you're cognitive that there's a God, who am I? Natati Gudula Avraham. I gave greatness to Avraham. Right? Pharaoh respected him. Abimelech was the greatest leaders of the world, the most powerful leaders of the world, paid due to Avraham. Right? What's the other guy? The guy who threw him in the furnace.
Nimrod.
Nimrod. Thank you. Nimrod. Right? They all. Can you imagine what that would have been like? Right? If you're walking down the street and Brad Pitt comes out of a building, or Warren Buffett comes out of a building and goes, "Oh, Steve Buzz, I've heard so much about you." That's gonna have a if I could get a picture of that, right, that's gonna sell a few books, right? So Pharaoh was it. He was the top of the food chain. Nimrod was it. Abimelech was it. All these people came to pay homage to Avraham. So Avraham was, amongst the rest of the world, no one messed with Avraham. Natati Gudula Avraham Amma, and nevertheless he said, Ani Afa ve'efa, I'm dust and ashes. He wasn't messing around. That's how he thought of himself. I'm dust and ashes, I'm nothing. Right? That's the way to be.
I don't understand this because, Abraham was known for treating people with such respect and honor, etc.
Yeah.
Like, he thought of himself as being like nothing. Then, like, what was the point of treating people with so much respect and honor and love, etc.? Like, you understand what I mean?
No. Sorry.
If a king thinks he's dust and ashes and then he goes and gives homage to another king, what value does that have?
I don't understand. You have kids.
Yeah.
That they wake up in the morning, you feed them, you clothe them, you bathe them, you take care of them all day long.
Uh-huh.
Not because you think you're such a big shot, but because they're so important.
Yeah, but I don't think of myself as dust and ashes.
No, the point is you don't think of yourself. That's the whole point.
Oh, is that what that's supposed to mean?
That's along those lines, right? What am I? I'm not here. If you try and think about who you are, I'm nothing. If you want to give it definition, that's the whole point. You don't know who we're nothing. It's the fire. You see, that's why it's so meaningful to run into the burning fire. Because when you lose yourself, you experience tremendous sense of meaning. When you can get in those situations, that's why they're doing it. These guys have got good jobs, 9 to 5. They've got more hours than that, making good money, and they're volunteering to be firemen. Because that experience of losing yourself, that I'm not important in front of something that is very important, and that's the way to do it. When you see what's really important in front of God, what am I?
I see. So you're saying in front of God, I'm nothing.
I'm nothing.
Okay, got it.
But that's all there is God.
Right.
So the same thing of Avraham. With Avraham, right? Nothing Gedula LaMoshe Aaron. I gave greatness to Moses and Aaron. Amru, Nachnu Ma. What are we? Right? What are we? Natat Gedula David. Same thing to King David. Amma. Vani Tolas Velo Ish. I'm a worm. That's my favorite, I think. Right? I'm a worm. I'm not a man. Right? That's a great one. I'm a worm. Right? What? I'm a worm.
None of them
I
said I'm
should be
chopped
such a
liver.
What's that?
None of them said I'm chopped liver.
All of worms have livers. All this comes because there isn't a heart. Hayashar. Anybody who's straight, a straight heart, to give him any sort of be swayed and enticed in any virtue that he has, whatever you can do. They can bring you out from any kind of loneliness. I heard Rav Noach say it, and I've heard it from other Gedolim, that they really believed they were just, they had nothing. They had no Torah. I know nothing. Right? I think I've told you the story. Rav Simcha Weinberg told me that Rabbi Akiva Eger, that he applied for the job as the janitor, right, in the local shul. I told you the story, right? How do you apply for the janitor of the local? Right, in his day, Rabbi Akiva Eger was it. There was nobody else. It's not like today. There's a number of people who are like, the leaders. He was like by far, he was it. I mean, he's phenomenal, like mind-boggling Torah. And he said, we have letters from Rashi. People were asking him shilas, and he would answer, I don't know why you're asking me. There's so many more smarter people than I. And he would list their names. And many of them were his own students. And he wasn't kidding around. Because if you don't have time to think about yourself, you're focused on the emergency at hand, the pressure at hand, you don't see who you are. You've got to take care of the problem. Right, people who are involved in rescuing Jews. I think his name was Weissmandel, Rabbi Weissmandel. There's a few. Literally saved thousands upon thousands of people. He had no concerns for himself. It's not about me. It's not about me. So anybody who has a straight heart, who realizes the truth, nothing you achieve gives you any superiority, any virtue whatsoever. It doesn't take you out of the loneliness that you find yourself turning the page. Even the mitzvahs that you achieve doesn't get you anywhere. Right? Yulud Isha. You're born of a woman. Nothing against women. So my best friends are women. I'm married to a woman, right? It doesn't, right? But just being born of a woman, meaning you're born of a being that's imperfect. We're born into we have all got nuances and what's the word? Tendencies and biases. Right? We're born in imperfections, right? That in of itself will bring us, is enough to appreciate that we have nothing for which to think that we're better than anybody else, right? That's the concept. We don't get out of this. We have nothing to ascribe to ourselves to think about. Nothing gets out of the mission at hand. The problem we have today is we don't have a concept of the mission at hand. Right? I think it's because people just don't read the newspapers. Right? How long can America go on like this with stupidity on stupidity on stupidity? How long does the corruption and the erosion and the you see these cities of homeless people growing up, and it's all because of immense dysfunction going on in America today, and it's just growing and growing and growing. People having children. It's just that's just one extreme, one point, one data point. But there's so much dysfunction going on in the world that it's unfortunately, I don't know which way to say it, but we don't have world wars. One of the reasons for the wars are very meaningful is that it cleans out this parts of society that just can't function. They don't know how to survive. They don't know how to have meaningful lives. It's a cruel way of saying it, but we now got a society that we've got immense parts of the world that are highly dysfunctional. Like if Medicare was to go away, the therapists would just stop treating people, and the therapists aren't keeping up. It's just getting to the point of mental illness is just going crazy.
But
So,
Rabbi, don't you know climate change is more important?
yeah, that's another one. That's another one, right?
We can't solve these other things when
Right.
in 2 years the earth might be destroyed because of all this climate change.
Right. I don't know. I was in a hotel. Where was I staying? I was just in a hotel recently. I was very pleased to see that on the mirror in the living room. Where was I? Just in a hotel recently, and they had a sign that the slave trade. How do they phrase the term? I forget how they phrased it, but there's something like 40 million people today who are in literal slavery, right? I think it's 2 million children. I think it is. I think that's the numbers. Where was I recently? I have to look at my schedule. I don't know where it was. So oh, I know. Oh yeah, it was at a wedding. That's right. It was at a wedding, right? And it said there, if you know anybody or you see anybody, and these are the signs. I don't know whether it does any good or not, but the fact that they put it front and center, right, instead of like the bath towels being, it was a Fairmont. No, it wasn't. Was it a courtyard? I forget what it was. I think it was a courtyard, Marriott courtyard, and instead of the towels being like saving the world because you don't want to wash them. It's not irrelevant, but the point is, it's like everyone's going crazy about reparations, which is an interesting thing, but nevertheless, you're worried about slavery. What about the slavery that's going on today? That should be front and center emergency. Anyway, the point is, like, if we focus on the emergencies, the real true emergencies, the problem with climate change, even if it was true, and it's debatable, and I don't want to get into it, but even if it was true, it's still nevertheless 15th on the list. It's if it's that, and the problem with climate change, it doesn't instill emergency in people's psyche. Slavery would, if we took it seriously, if we focused on it. For some reason, I don't know, which fouls me, why the world finds this an irrelevant issue. Mind-boggling. But anyway, the point.
It's not that they find it an irrelevant issue. It's that until recently, people were not aware of it.
Yeah, but they're making them aware, and it's not gaining any leverage.
No, they have all these conferences where people are attending, and they're becoming more aware of it and figuring out, how to be helpful and what signs to look for.
Yeah, I understand, but you don't see people. You don't see people. When was the last time you saw a march in Washington? When do you see the rainbow signs outside people's houses? It's not front and center by any stretch. But anyway, we're getting way off topic here.
So Rabbi, when you mentioned the different professions,
yes,
and how people are looking to find out who they are, um, uh, are you saying that when you do these different professions, the goal is to get yourself into a situation where you have to see the emergency, you have to see the pressing situation,
Pressing need.
the pressing need, that and that's when you really are finding who you are within that
That's
profession?
going to apply in your profession as a doctor. It's not going to apply in. I mean, it can apply in other professions. It depends what you're doing. Like if you're an accountant for Starbucks, it's hard to feel the pressing need is like, people don't get enough coffee. It's like, what's the pressing need, right? But if you look into a person should look at the world and see what's the emergency, what is the state of the world, and see the crisis going on. If people were doing that in 1933, some people were doing it, right? But they couldn't get the people's attention. But if you look in 1933, you could see what was going to happen. We're all keen on the crisis when they were picking up Jews on trains, but it's seeing what it is ahead of time, where this is going to. That's what I'm saying. Is like we're headed for disaster. This isn't going to keep going forever. We're in a very unusual time. The First World War was a big deal, but the world had been engaged in wars all the way back. Every 20, 30 years, they had another major crisis. Not as big as as World War I or World War II, but they had significant problems. Each country was getting involved, fighting some silly thing. So we're in a time where we've never had this length of time of tranquility. It's sort of like what would it be like? It's like when it's a problem when things don't break down. When cars cars used to break down, or washing machines, or vacuum cleaners, different things. But when they build them so that they last for a long time, it creates all other kinds of problems. So people are living longer, so it creates all kinds of other problems that you didn't expect. But the society has evolved. We've hit a situation where we don't have any significant problems in life. There's no world wars to fight. There's no crisis going on, and we're focused on things that should not be a focus. And we're missing the great disasters that will eventually rise and cause tremendous problems for us. It's just a matter of time. That's what the Second World War is. That's the Holocaust. You didn't see what was coming because there's an underlying problem going here that you didn't take care of. Well, we've got these problems now, and we're not really we're not focusing on them at all. We're focused on irrelevances.
And that's because we're not properly humble.
Yeah, we got caught up in our own junk. I would focus on it, but I need to like watch the rerun of Seinfeld. I need my comfy chair. I'm not telling you I'm not any better than anybody else. I've also got my self-interests. Right? And he's going to say that in the next few lines. This is all very good with Moshe, with Alpha, with the greats, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. This is we are orphans of orphans. Right? This is on the next page. We'll get to that next time, hopefully. We're so low we don't even realize how low. It's like the old joke about it's a Yom Kippur and the rabbi is standing in front of everyone's there, 500 people in front of everybody. The rabbi throws himself on the floor and he says, "Before God, I am nothing." Right? With that, the chazan, he throws himself on the floor and says, "Before God, I am nothing." And with that, the president of the shul throws himself on the ground He says, before God, I am nothing. And the rabbi turns to the husband and says, look who thinks he's nothing. So Rosh Hashanah is coming. Let me just give a little idea on Rosh Hashanah. So it says, the Rambam says a fascinating thing. He says, absolutely mind-boggling. He says on Rosh Hashanah, everybody, Jews and non-Jews, everybody, every human being in the world is judged on Rosh Hashanah. If your good deeds are greater than your negative deeds, you get put in the good book. Very nice. I like that. And if your bad deeds are greater than your good deeds, you get put in the other book. I don't like that. Right, you follow? And if you're chetzi, 50-50, right, it waits until Yom Kippur. Right? If you do tshuva, if you repent, right, then you get put in the good book. And if you don't repent, you get put in the other book. Right, you follow? You with me so far? So he says, it's not good deeds like we think good deeds. Like I gave $10 to tzedakah, I kissed the mezuzah 4 times, I helped a little old lady across the street. Okay, so I've done 17 things, right? And 3 bad things. So 17-3, I'm good. Right? It doesn't work like that, right? It's a scale that we cannot comprehend. It's not our scale. But whatever the scale is, whatever the judgment is, that's how it works. You with me? So just about everybody, if not everybody, asks on this Rambam, like, why do you have to do tshuva? Right? You get to Rosh Hashanah, it's 50-50. Half your good deeds, your good deeds are matched with your bad deeds, which, by the way, is a very strange thing. It's very hard to get exactly matched. There are very few times you ever get where your debits are equal to your credits. But very few people live like that. It's usually one way strongly or the other way. It's very hard to be exactly on target. The good deeds are exactly matched with the bad deeds. But okay, let's say you get there, right, folks? So he says, if it's 50-50, you're exactly matched. So it waits to Yom Kippur. If you do tshuva in that week, that's what's called the Aseres Yemei Tshuva, the 10 days of tshuva, then you got put in the good book. So everybody says, why do you have to do tshuva? Just do good deeds. If you do lots of good deeds, right, you're a big tzaddik, right, you do lots of good deeds, then by next year, on Yom Kippur, you've pushed it over to the side of good, and you're good to go. Just make sure that week you keep away from, like, eating a limb off a live animal. Don't do that if you're going to have it, but not during the week of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. Means if you made it to Rosh Hashanah, you're put in the good book last year, you're good to go. Maybe you're 50-50, you want to get put in the good book again, right? So don't eat the limb of a live animal, give tzedakah, help lots of little old ladies across the street, you're good to go. Why do you have to do tshuva? Yes, tshuva is a mitzvah. There's a mitzvah from the Torah to do tshuva. That's true. Although it's questionable whether it's the mitzvah to do tshuva or whether it's the vidah, but whatever it is, right? So great, it's one of the mitzvahs, right? But there's lots of mitzvahs. Why do you have to make sure to do tshuva? You understand? Why do it could be any mitzvah. You hear the question?
Yeah, but the whole point of tshuva is to come closer to God, to come back to God, to come back to who you are and what your purpose is.
That's 100% true. But here we're talking about the judgment on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Right? Specifically for that, why do you have to do tshuva? And your answer is spot on, but you're missing a tiny crack. You're right there. You're on the button.
So I think Rabbi Kessin says it's like, let's say you're part of a corporation and they're trying to decide whether or not, each employee has been helping towards the basic mission and goal of the company.
Yeah.
And, if you haven't done that, you better find a way to show that you're going to be doing it the following year. And here's your plan. And yes, you're recommitting yourself to the mission so you can stay around.
Right. That's good. That's good. But here we're talking about the judgment. The good deeds equal the bad deeds. And it's very interesting because the minhag between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is not to do mitzvahs. The minhag is to take on subtle rabbinical or minhagim kind of concepts. We eat bread from a Jew, we drink milk from a Jew, we eat Chalav Yisrael. Right? That's the custom. Which are not mitzvahs from the Torah at all. Right? In that week, we do these kind of things. You think that week it would be give lots of tzedakah, keep a 3-day Shabbos, fasting, all kinds of different things. There are some ideas, some fasting, but we have some gedalia, but we don't. But there are no mitzvah devices that we focus on. You understand?
Yeah, there is. We ask people for forgiveness.
Okay, that's a good point. Right, that's a good point. Very good. But we also focus on these things. Why do we focus on these things? Because you have to do tshuva, right? You with me? Right? That's what he says, do tshuva. What are you doing tshuva for? It's very interesting. The Gemara says that if you see a tzaddik does an avera in the morning, don't suspect him by the evening because he's done tshuva. Or I think it's the other way around. If you see him in the evening, don't suspect him by the morning. He's done tshuva. So how do you get to Rosh Hashanah? You haven't done tshuva. So it's a different kind of tshuva. What are you doing tshuva for on Rosh Hashanah? What are you doing tshuva between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur?
That you didn't meet up to your potential.
And how is that expressed?
By regretting not having reached your potential.
Yeah, and that's expressed by the term. It's called a term. What's that term?
Slichot.
It's good. The Rambam
You mean
calls it-
a word? Oh, like charata, regret?
No.
You mean
I'm looking for a
aside from the word
specific term.
tshuva?
No, I'm looking for a specific term, but I don't think it's too vague. Let me tell you. It says, you get to Rosh Hashanah, if you're a tzaddik, right, you've got more good deeds, right, you go in the good book, more bad deeds, you go in the bad book. And if you're a Beinani, you're in the middle, where you either good or bad, good deeds or bad deeds, you wait until Yom Kippur. If you do tshuva, you get put in the good book. What do you do tshuva for? For being a Beinani.
For being mediocre?
Being mediocre. So why do we do all these things, right? Chalav Yisrael, Pas Yisrael, all these things. Why do we do these things? Because those are the kind of things that people who think that they're tzaddikim do. Stop thinking yourself as a nobody. Think of yourself as the biggest tzaddik in your town, in Edison, in New York, in America. How can you walk down the street looking like that? So you walk down the street looking like that because I'm a nobody. But if you were the king of America and everybody looking at you, right? You follow? Would you walk like? Would you be smiling? Would you be happy? Would you be greeting everybody? I don't greet it because that's the kind of thing big tzaddikim do. I don't do things like that because I'm no tzaddik. So what do you do tshuva for? For being a Beinani. Oh, I'm a tzaddik. Think of yourself as a big person. Now that seems to contradict what we said. Everything we said about humility. Okay, but anyway, right? It's talking to the negative one man with a Mesilat Yesharim. We put ourselves down. Right? We should think of ourselves as far. And in today's world, it's totally true. We are holding up the world. Rav Noach used to say, I saw him say it to people who are making a difference in the world. He says, you're holding up the world. There aren't many of us. So go out there and be tzaddikim.
What is it? What
Yes.
is it, Rabbi? When you mentioned the seeker app or seekers after living.
That's what we are. We're seekers for greatness, seekers for meaning. That's what a human being is. We're a seeker. We're not an it. We don't ever get there. Right? Rebbetzin Heller says, right, you never finish parenting. Right? Your kids may finish you, but you never finish them. Right? We're always seeking to grow and become better. We never get there. That's what a human being is. As soon as you think you're there, I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, I'm a rabbi. Right? As soon as you think you're a somebody, then you've got big problems. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.